Welcome back to Redline Global Special from Lahore, Pakistan and Beirut, Lebanon. We are combining our strengths and our editorial content to produce something truly remarkable in Pakistan's media history, giving you a 3D perspective on issues of great import. But remember, these are all journalists who are working overtime to provide you information, and this is a hazardous profession. Today we want to dedicate this part of the program about coverage of events that generally look simple, but they are not that simple, and they entail heavy losses to journalists as well. My colleague Letitia is there in Beirut. She has a few thoughts and a report to run on journalists in the line of duty and what it means to them. And then we will share some personal experiences as well, and you will get an insight into what it's like to be a journalist on the field.
Thank you, Talat. Far beyond simple. Of course, like you mentioned, journalism is actually recognized by the UN as one of the most dangerous professions in the world. And actually here in Lebanon, so far this year, it has become the deadliest country for media workers around the world. So we talk about these headlines, but behind those headlines, there are men and women who risk everything to bring you the stories that we see in programs like this. Journalists covering the Middle East conflicts were killed in numbers that shocked even veteran war correspondents. Today, Stephanie Haddad reports on what the death of journalists means for the truth.
2024 was deadliest year for journalists ever recorded by Committee to Protect Journalists, almost 70% killed by Israel. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, CPG, at least 370 journalists and media workers have been killed worldwide from 2023 until today. Gaza has become the deadliest conflict for journalists ever recorded, with CPG reporting at least 260 journalists killed since the war began, while Lebanon has also seen a rising toll, with 15 journalists and media workers killed since the war on Gaza started. In 2023, the Middle East has become one of the deadliest regions in the world for journalists. And the danger is not only in Gaza. The numbers show a sharp escalation: 99 killed in 2023, 124 killed in 2024, 129 killed in 2025, and 18 documented so far in 2026. Journalists have also been killed while covering conflict and instability in places like Lebanon, Syria, Sudan, Ukraine, Mexico, Palestine, Myanmar, Iraq, and Haiti. In Lebanon, the Committee to Protect Journalists says 15 journalists and media workers have been killed by Israeli fire since October 7, 2023.
It has been 1 year since Israeli tank fire killed our colleague, Issam Abdallah.
Some were covering the war from the south, some were inside media vehicles, and some were in homes or buildings later hit by airstrikes. In 2024 alone, 3 journalists and media workers killed in Lebanon were documented, and in 2026 the toll continued. In March, an Israeli strike on a media car in southern Lebanon killed 3 journalists: Ali Shaib, Fatima Ftouni, and Mohammed Ftouni. Days later, journalist Amal Khalil was killed in southern Lebanon after Israeli strikes hit the area where she and photographer Zainab Faraj were reporting. Rescue workers were prevented from reaching the crew and called for an urgent international investigation. For press freedom groups, the pattern is becoming impossible to ignore. Journalists covering war are being killed while doing their work. In Syria, the danger is different, but it has lasted for years. After more than a decade of war, journalists still face killing, detention, disappearance, and intimidation. In 2024, 4 journalists and media workers were killed in Syria, and the risks did not stop after the fall of Bashar al-Assad. In 2025, journalists were killed, wounded, shot at, and blocked from entering Sweda as violence spread in southern Syria. In Iran, CPG has documented at least 1 journalist killed in 2026, Masoud Salimi, a freelance journalist killed in March. And beyond killings, press freedom groups say journalists in Iran continue to face arrests, intimidation, censorship, and severe restrictions, especially during moments of political or military escalation. In Pakistan, the danger comes less from one front line and more from a climate of political unrest. Militant violence, intimidation, and impunity. In 2024, CPG documented 6 journalists and media workers killed in Pakistan. In Sudan, the war has made journalism almost impossible. In 2024, 6 journalists and media workers were killed. And in 2025, that number rose to 9 as Sudan's civil war continued to turn cities, homes, and newsrooms into battlefields. From Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria to Pakistan and Sudan, the pattern is clear. Journalists are being killed not only on the front line, but wherever truth becomes dangerous to report. Because in war, journalists are not only documenting history, too often they are becoming part of it.
Unfortunately, thank you, Stephanie, a terrible situation. Talking about these numbers makes us realize how dangerous the situation is for us all. And of course, sharing my thoughts with you, Talat, back in Lahore, I am Mexican-American, coming from the US just a few months ago. We have our own issues in the US when it comes to biased media coverage. On the Mexican side, of course, with organized crime and the cartels going after journalists as well, that's definitely a dangerous situation. But when it comes to being on ground in a war situation, I think nothing could have prepared me for the frightening situation that develops day by day, that instability, that chaos, and trying to work at the same time, trying to get those stories out. But of course, feeling it on a personal level is definitely a different kind of frightening. I want to get your perspective. I know you've covered conflict zones for many years. So what's your take on this?
Look, it's astounding, the numbers that you put out in the report that you broadcast. What really strikes me as the hardest fact is that over 355 journalists were killed, and they are either from the Middle East or areas around the Middle East. So you had Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, and then adjoining you have Sudan and Yemen. Of course, Ukraine is at a distance. But if you were to look at it as an expanded zone of threat to journalists, Middle East and the adjoining areas remain the core threat. You mentioned reporting from the war zones. We have done that not because this was a choice that we exercised, but because of the nature of the profession and the geography that dictated the nature of work. I was part of the media team that boarded the first flotilla that went to Gaza and was hijacked by the Israelis and attacked by the Israelis in 2010. And I can tell you this was among the 3 times when I was the closest to getting killed, and 10 of the people on board were killed. About 67 were brutally injured, and then we were taken into Israeli prisons, which was a horrendous experience to begin with. But frankly, the way journalists were treated with utter contempt and suspicion had got nothing to do with who they were, everything to do with what they were doing. And what they were doing, Letitia, were documenting. And that's the problem with journalism for those oppressors of human rights and violators of human rights, or drug cartels, or criminal gangs, or thugs, or rogue states, that they do not want their crimes to be documented. So the first question always was, do you have visuals hidden somewhere? This was a time of DV cams. We didn't have those, smart SIMs with us, except for one journalist who was able to, film it and then sneak it out. There were only 3 videos that came out of that conflict. 2 of us were filmed by myself and my producer, another one by that journalist who was working with another organization. So they wanted to get hold of those visuals. All the cameras were taken away. All the mobiles were taken away, not because they had great data, but they had visuals. So documentation of crime is something that journalists always have to commit. But now things have changed. Looking at the brutality that you just documented and the sheer scale of the numbers, frankly, and I never thought I would live to say these words, how we were treated by the Israelis at that time looks like fairly normal by their standards of oppression. The way they have gone after the journalists now, hook, line, and sinker, attacking vans and not just killing them 1s and 2s, but in huge numbers. So the matrix of the kill capacity has changed, the intention has changed, but the bottom line remains, nobody wants the crimes to be documented, to be shown to the public, which is the fundamental responsibility of journalists like myself and yourself and thousands of others across networks and borders who are putting themselves in harm's way just to bring that information out.
Dada, thank you so much for sharing those images with us here and for documenting the reality when you did years ago on the field, and of course doing it now. Like you mentioned, things are changing. Of course, the information that we get now is almost immediate. We're getting it not only through journalists, but everybody that is putting the videos out there, that's putting the information out there through social media. But I think that the role that we play as journalists now is very important, even more so because of social media, because you need to be able to rely on those avenues that give you the correct information. With the spread of disinformation, it's definitely an important job that we do. But like you said, the numbers are astonishing. It's sad to see the situations that are happening, specifically here in the southern portion of Lebanon, those journalists being killed specifically, systematically, being chased after. So it's definitely a frightening situation that we have happening here in the Middle East.
It sure is. Well, we can only hope for the best. We cannot get off the track of our main job. And what also, towards the end of it, Letitia, with my great compliments to your entire team to do a fantastic job in such a troubled region, just to be in that zone and to live through that uncertainty and then keep on doing your job takes the heart of a lion. So kudos to you. The only problem that I see now is that pens have been used as bombs. Mobiles have become munition, and drones that we normally use to film and document areas are now weapons of war. So it looks to me that somebody is sitting out there saying that all the instruments that journalists use to document the crime should become part and parcel of the crime itself. But life goes on, and hopefully we will have sanity prevail. Again, thank you very much for joining in. Viewers, we now have to call it a day. This has been a remarkable experience. I hope you have enjoyed the debate from Lahore and Beirut. Good night for now, and see you another day.